Welcome back to the District 32 podcast. I'm Kingsley from Tomorrow's Not Today. In the studio, Dean Keating, the co-founder, District 32.
Yeah, it's half my fault.
D32?
D32.
It seems like your branding is
we've rebranded. Yep. So it's D32 Business Network now, because we kind of felt District 32 didn't say what it said in the tin, and that was pointed out by people who had inquired about our franchise. So we've rebranded, name changed it, and on our 10th birthday this week. So all fresh and new.
Oh, is it your 10th birthday?
Yeah, Monday.
That's right. Yeah. You had a big party in WA, didn't you?
Yeah, a big one this week on the Gold Coast on Friday. So it should be good.
Oh, is that going to be a party?
Yeah, at the Maxi event, yeah.
I didn't realise that. Okay, that makes it even more important to be there.
It'd be good.
Now, we were talking before, your topic for today, I love this because I think there's very few of us who actually have this absolutely nailed.
Yeah.
And it's your background as well, and it's something I know you're very passionate about, which is sales strategy.
Yeah.
So give me an overall to start with on what a sales strategy is.
Yeah. So I suppose my background is largely in business development. So I view business development as you're starting from ground zero. You have no budget or very little budget. So how are you going to fill that pipeline? So I always recommend that you have 3 to 4 strategies and you put weights on them. So strategy 1 might be 60% of your time. Strategy 2 could be 30%. Strategy 3 could be 5%, and whatever the remainder is. So, and you review them. What's working? What needs to be changed? Where do I need to focus my time? I suppose an interesting question I do ask people in business: how do you guys do sales? And it does be, you can read the body language. With most people, it doesn't flow well. Here's how we do it. We do A, we do B, we do C, we do D. Usually people have to think about it. So what that says to me is there is a sales strategy, but it's largely ad hoc. There isn't a particular flow about what they do. And even with successful 7-figure businesses, I would find the same. So I think it's important that we all have 3 to 4 strategies kind of nailed down that we review regularly, whether that's weekly or monthly. For me, it's weekly.
It seems like, from what I'm hearing, there's a couple of things going on here.
Yeah.
One is you've got different sales strategies, so you're putting different emphasis on at a particular time.
Yeah.
And the other one is the actual flow of that particular strategy as like your pipeline, not so much your pipeline, but I guess it is, so how you get them from first interaction in whatever degree through to sales. Yeah. Can you sort of hook those together? Does each strategy have to work the same way in the flow of a customer, or what's different?
I suppose the goal for me on a weekly basis is how do I fill the top of that pipeline? And like surveys that I've seen in the past, like 48% of professional salespeople, the part of the sales process they hate is the first part, which is basically the lead generation. A survey we actually District 32 done a number of years ago as well with business leaders. Figures were quite similar. So it is the hardest part, is getting people into the top of that pipeline. So the question to ask yourself is, what am I doing over this week as business development to get people into the top of that pipeline? So for me, it hasn't actually changed too much over the 32 years. And networking has always been big for me because you have a captive audience who are there for similar reasons. Having one-to-one meetings, which largely I get in the back of the networking for the most part, is my second strategy. My third strategy is usually the phone. And then my last strategy, which I haven't done too much of lately, is old-fashioned door knocking. So I put a weight on them. So probably over recent times, I've probably spent maybe 40% of my time on the networking, probably 40 to 50% on the one-to-ones, and the remainder on the telesales stroke door knocking aspect.
Okay, so that's different strategies that you're using.
Yeah.
What about the flow to take them from I've got them into this funnel and then taking them through to an actual sell?
Yeah, great question. So what data would say in recent times is it takes between 4 and 22 touch points for someone to be in that buying.
A lot, isn't it?
It is a lot. But again, you got to think about it. You're building a relationship. You're trying to build the trust. So the question actually is, how am I going to do that? You don't have time for coffees and Zoom calls with an individual every week. So you're looking at leveraging off automation. So that customer journey could be stuff like connecting on LinkedIn. It could be a phone call. It could be a coffee meeting. It could be them getting your newsletter. It could be them inviting you to an event. I'd highly recommend the District 32 events. Yeah. I don't know why. It could be sharing of an article. Like there's so many touch points that are soft. But what you're trying to do is build that connection.
So when you're saying touch points, that can be any way where they see you sort of in a
100%.
positive way?
Yeah, any way someone interacts with your brand, they might see, you might have an ad on social media, they might see an article on LinkedIn. So any way someone sees your name or brand is, I suppose, what we call a touch point. So the more touch points, obviously, the quicker they become familiar with your name, the trust builds. But the hard part, I was saying, is the first part, the lead generation. How are you going to fill the top of that pipeline? Because you're kind of thinking about the nurturing part. I'm not saying it's easy, but what we've just shared there is half a dozen examples which aren't too difficult. But the hard part is actually, how do I fill the top of that pipeline? How am I making the connections to get them into the space where I can actually nurture them with the view to maybe either closing them or have them as referral partners? So that is the tough part. And I said what my strategies have generally been as a BDM, business development, starting from ground zero, low budget. So you can see what my activity is. It's around networking, one-to-ones, the phone, and some old-fashioned door knocking. So there's not a lot of expense incurred in those activities.
Now, obviously, every business is going to operate a little bit differently.
Yeah.
You're a networking group. You've got IT companies out there. You've got mechanics. You've got people with hotels.
Yeah.
You've got finance people. Is there a certain thing that everyone should be doing to build that funnel?
Yeah, well, I suppose my view is I don't discriminate. So
I'm glad about that.
So I'm looking to just fill the top of the pipeline. Like at the end of the day, not everyone is going to be my client, but potentially they could be a referral partner. They could introduce me to family, friends, associates in charity, sports, or whatever the case may be. So I don't discriminate. As they go through the pipeline, you kind of figure out after a number of touch points who potentially will be a client or customer, who potentially will be a referral partner, and then you put that focus where it needs to go. But initially, I'm just looking to fill the top of my pipeline. So I'm setting myself KPIs around each week, how many have I added to the top of that pipeline. I don't want to rely totally on digital advertising and stuff. That's great as well. But I have a focus around how do I add to the top of that pipeline.
So now I could be going a little bit off track here.
Go for it. Yeah.
But you got things like sponsorships.
Yeah.
So let's say you're at an event or football's really big in your area. Is something like that where you might buy a sign, you might be giving away a trophy at a golf club or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Would you class that as like a touch point that people have seen you?
Yeah, 100% it's a touch point. But if you actually flick that to the other side, so say your kids are involved with that AFL team, people are sponsoring for a reason. They're looking for exposure. So, I mean, if you were to contact them as, hey, my kid plays for the team, I'd be keen to meet with you, my product or service is this, there could be synergies. Well, 99 times out of 100 the sponsors going, we're getting some interaction from the community which we're sponsoring. So that's a good way of filling your pipeline, being aware kind of, I suppose, socially. I'm not saying you should spend all your time thinking of BDM, but stuff like that is a good opportunity. I mean, an AFL local team might have a dozen, maybe 20 sponsors, and potentially they all have databases. So again, they mightn't be a direct client for yourself, but they might have the database you want to link into. So there's potential being a sponsor or being involved in that club or community group.
I like where you went there, whereas you do a sponsorship, but what can come off the back of that? Is there a database there? Is there a special day they're putting on? Is there, how else can you get involved with the people there as well?
Well, a great question. And I suppose, I mean, if you're sponsoring an event, usually the group or association, what the case may be, I mean, they're going to give you ideas. Well, here's how you're getting exposure. Here's how you'll get inquiries. Or we host these events and you take home the attendee list. So again, if you are sponsoring something that's important, you're thinking, okay, where is the value in this? How am I going to get people into the top of this pipeline from being a sponsor? And again, I mean, there's other good stuff around sponsorship, goodwill, and community and sport as well. Like
absolutely, and people love working with people who are there to help their community, their group, or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know, like so you got someone in the top of your funnel, you're sending newsletters, you might give a call, you do whatever. How do you know when it's time to actually start, if I can be a bit crude, selling them? Is that something where they may ask a question or you can see a need that, you could help with? How do you know when it's the time?
I think it comes back to, and you've touched on it in previous conversations, it's around listening, again, with intent to kind of be aware of, do they have a pain point for your product or service? And what are the questions? Are you asking the right questions? And again, I'm not saying go straight in for the kill when you meet someone, because people will get defensive. So spend a bit of time building the trust if you're starting from ground zero. But listen with intent. What do they need to grow their business or sell their product or service? Where can you add value and fast track that trust? And a lot of times I find if you're building the trust and you're doing that well, it's easier then to kind of say, hey, listen, I think we've got a solution that might solve that issue, challenge, problem you've got in the business, or whatever the case may be. And again, going back to what I said earlier, like you get a good feeling. Like, I mean, there's one I can think of in particular. My sales process, I ignored what I normally do, and I kind of fast-tracked the closing part, and it was terrible. I felt terrible personally, and this is about 3 years ago, and I just dumped my whole process for the sake of trying to close it. And I knew the guy needed, the distributor would have been a massive value add to what he was trying to achieve, but I pushed him away from that meeting, whereas I had just stuck to what I know, nurture, build the trust, ask the right questions, be able to showcase where you can add value to where District 32 would have been added value to his business as a solution to what he was looking for. But the gut feeling, I think, is for me, is a big thing.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's one thing to be in business. You've got to be fulfilled and feel good about what you're doing as well at the same time.
100%.
I like what you said there. You're taking them through they're in the funnel. There's a bit of nurturing. You're listening to them, and then because you're building the trust and hearing, have I got something that's actually going to help them? Yeah. And I think what you just said, that framework you put out, it doesn't matter what industry you're in or how you do business, it's exactly that same simple framework. And I think if anybody listened to this podcast was to just implement that there in however that's going to fit into their business, but that basic plain 4 steps, I think you're laughing.
The thing to remember as well, Kingsley, is we're on the same team as the prospect. Like, it's not them versus us. We're on the same team. We want them to thrive on our product or service, and sometimes our product and service isn't a good fit. So be honest. Don't sell for the sake of selling. I mean, there's a couple of people even with Distro over the years, and you'd say, listen, I don't think we're a good fit, and you kind of highlight the reasons and maybe direct them elsewhere for something that would be a good fit for them, either personality wise or for what they need.
No, I love that, Dean. That's fantastic, and that how you just framed that is absolute gold. And
appreciate it.
I'm going to take that myself and steal a few points there and see what I can adjust as well.
Brilliant. I'll keep you accountable next month.
Yeah, that's a worry. Thanks, Dean.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. Cheers, Kingsley.